So today we have Stefan Salvatore from the Vampire Diaries taking on Edward Cullen from the Twilight movies. Who wins? Well, let's find out. So, in 1918, Edward Mason had the Spanish influenza and was dying. In order to save his life, his doctor, Carlisle Cullen, who also was an old vampire, turned him into a vampire. Over the next 90 years, the two of them would bring in a family of vampires who only fed on animals, and they all changed their last names to Cullen. He has all the standard powers of a typical vampire. He's strong enough to easily stop and dent an out of control and speeding van with one hand, easily send Jacob flying back with one hand, and easily rip apart vampires. He's durable enough to easily withstand attacks from older and stronger vampires, including the Volturi, the oldest and strongest vampires, and he's fast enough to run across an entire school parking lot before a speeding van could hit Bella and to appear as a blur while running. He's also known as the fastest vampire in the Cullen family. He's also a formidable fighter, perfectly using his strength and speed in combat. He also has superhuman acute senses. And finally, he has the rare power of telepathy, being able to read everyone's mind in his area without touching them. This also helps him in a fight, as he can read his opponent's mind and know their next move as well. But in the other corner, we have Stefan Salvatore from the Vampire Diaries. He was a 171-year-old vampire turned when he was 17 and was born and raised in the supernatural town of Mystic Falls. Although he was normally kind, calm, and collective, he couldn't control his thirst for human blood. One drop and he becomes the Ripper, a creature only driven by human blood and kills everything in its path. He has massacred an entire village in one night before, a feat that even impressed the original hybrid Nick Klaus. He possesses all the standard powers of a normal vampire, including superhuman strength, speed, durability, reflexes, and accelerated healing factor, enhanced senses, and compulsion on people. Due to being over 150 years old, or being a vampire for over 150 years, his physicality and healing factor are better than that of younger vampires. He's proven to be an experienced and expert fighter, being able to single-handedly beat groups of younger vampires, stalemate or even best his brother on a couple of occasions, beat werewolves, and even bested Julian, a vampire who's over 475 years old, and probably would have killed him if others didn't get involved. He wears a daylight ring so he can go outside during the day. He's also a genius, as he has graduated college quite a few times, earning degrees in different fields each time he did. And he also has the power of compulsion, where he can compel people to do anything he wants, as long as they're not on vervain. And finally, he's also an expert strategist as well. So, Twilight and the Vampire Diaries are very similar. It only makes sense to put their main male protagonists against each other. So, who's stronger? Well, Edward was able to easily send Jacob flying with one hand, stopped a speeding and out of control van with one hand, and casually rip apart vampires. But Stefan was able to snap Rebecca Michelson's neck, an original vampire, easily overpower and send vampires flying, casually rip heads off and rip hearts out, and even single-handedly kill older and stronger vampires. I'd say Stefan is at least slightly stronger, just because he is 60 years older than Edward. Yeah. Now, when it comes to durability, I'm gonna say Edward takes it, just because there's more ways to kill vampires from the Vampire Diaries than vampires from Twilight. Like, regular vampires in the Vampire Diaries can die from being stabbed in the heart with wood, having their hearts ripped out, decapitation, overexposure to sunlight, massive explosions, and a werewolf/hybrid bite. On the other hand, it's stated that the only surefire way to kill vampires in Twilight is to rip apart their bodies and burn every part of them. Now, granted, we've never seen a vampire come back from something like a decapitation or being ripped apart, but still, Edward is more durable. But Edward never really showed that he had much of a healing factor. at least not one nearly as good, effective, and fast as Stefan's. And now, speed. Well, they're both fast enough to appear as a blur while running, and they both can react at this speed as well. They're fairly even here, as Edward was able to run across an entire parking lot before that speeding and out of control van could hit Bella, and Stefan was able to evade an explosion while carrying Damon in less than a second. So, both have their own physical advantages, with Stefan being stronger and has a healing factor, Edward being more durable, and they're about equal in speed. So, now, neither of them are skilled fighters, as neither have any formal training, but both are good at using their physicality while in combat, and both have several decades of fighting experience as well. But I'm going to give this advantage to Stefan, because Edward hasn't done too well against older and stronger vampires by himself, most noticeably his fight against Felix. He was completely overpowered and would have died. But Stefan actually has single-handedly killed older and stronger vampires before. Now for their powers. Stefan's compulsion won't do anything to Edward because it doesn't work on vampires. Edward is a vampire. Edward's telepathy, however, is a different story. He's able to read his opponent's mind to know their next move so he can counter it. This is a massive advantage for him. But he doesn't do this very often for some reason. Also, Stefan might actually have some resistance to psionic powers and attacks, because some vampires in the Vampire Diaries have the ability to make anyone see visions and illusions, but it only works while their target's mind is relaxed, like when they're sleeping or unconscious, not during an intense fight like this would be. So, who wins? Well, it would be a good and interesting fight, but I'm siding with Stefan on this one, because I don't believe you have to burn vampires in Twilight to kill them, like it was stated, because the werewolves were killing vampires just by ripping them apart and or decapitating them, which is something Stefan will easily be able to do and is capable of doing to Edward. Edward can get a few wins with his telepathy, but Stefan is winning the majority. Stefan Salvatore wins. Like and subscribe. Please leave a comment down below, and please hit the notification bell if you did enjoy, and all that great stuff. See you on the next one. Peace.